Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala addresses the believers in the Quran with a profound statement where He says, يا أيها الذين آمنوا قوا أنفسكم وأهليكم نارا وقودها الناس والحجارة قوا أنفسكم وأهليكم نارا وقودها الناس والحجارة عليها ملائكة غلاظ شداد لا يعصون الله ما أمرهم ويفعلون ما يؤمرون. Allah addresses the believers to take responsibility, the responsibility of protecting themselves and their families, their dependents, their spouses and their children from a burning fire whose fuel is humans and stones. It burns humans and stones and rocks. And the guardians responsible for this hellfire are very tough and rough angels. They are of a rough nature. They obey Allah whatever He commands them, and they never do any kind of disobedience. They never do something from their own selves. So the responsibility of any believing human being is to protect themselves from the hellfire and protect their dependents and their family members from doing anything that could lead them to the hellfire. So it's a responsibility. Yes, first and foremost, we are responsible for ourselves, but we are also responsible for our families. And this is a profound responsibility. And this means on the day of judgment, when each one of us stands in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for the reckoning, for the hisab, for the account, you will be asked about yourself. And on top of this, you will be asked about your family. What did you do to protect them from the hellfire? So it's a responsibility, and you will be questioned about that. You will be held responsible and accountable for whether you did or you did not effectively act to protect your family members from the hellfire. Where does this lead us? It leads us to realize the importance of our families and that we are responsible for them. Because in the minds of many people, of many fathers, so in this khutbah specifically, I'm addressing the parents. And more specifically, I'm addressing the bread owner in the house, mainly the father. Because we tend to think, or many of us tend to think, that being a father is only about bringing food onto the table. Only earning a living and providing financially for the kids. Making sure they eat well, they dress well, they go to school, and that they grow physically healthy. We think that's what being a father really means. So we limit it to that, only to that duty. And when it comes to the mothers, a lot of the mothers think that the responsibility is that she has to give birth, clean the child, wash their clothes, prepare their food, and that's it. And that's it. So in a sense, some of us have reduced parenthood and the beautiful position or role of being a father or a mother only to physical needs. Only to physical needs. But this verse defies this kind of understanding. That Allah says, your responsibility is to protect yourself and your families from the hellfire. So being a father or a mother is not limited to just providing for them, looking after their hygiene, helping them buy clothes and go to school and just physically grow to become adults. That's not what parenthood is about. Only about that. It's more than that. So it's important for us to see ourselves as parents that we have to protect our children and our spouses from any way that could lead them to the hellfire. Again, there is another misconception that is common among us. We think the only way as a father to protect my children from the hellfire is basically to give them some teachings about Islam, educate them. Educate them about Islam by sending them to school, to weekend school, Quran school, or by teaching them personally. If you know Arabic, you know Quran, you know some hadith, you know some fiqh, you teach them. Which is a great thing to do. An important element of raising our kids. But we limit it to that. Because I can see a lot of parents are actually doing well in this regards. They try to secure Islamic education and Islamic awareness for their kids. So they go through some kind of curriculum, some kind of teaching, some kind of guidance. They try their best. If they themselves don't know, they make sure they send them to a qualified teacher or Quran teacher or an Islamic school that hopefully will be able to teach them Islam. I'm not going to talk about the shortcomings that we have in the way we teach Islam and in our curriculums and in the way we conduct our schooling. That's a completely different topic. But at least when someone doesn't know as a parent how to educate their kids, they don't have the knowledge, so they trust the teachers, they trust the schools that are around because that's the best that they can do. So that's a good thing, but that's also not enough. That's also not enough. Because as the kids grow, as they reach their teenage years, you'll start to find that the kids, the boys and the girls, will start to be more connected to their friends in school, in the neighborhood. They start to confide in them and trust them more than they trust their parents. So they start to learn from their peers, from their friends, more than they learn from parents or their teachers. And sometimes this actually gets worse to the point where they start mixing up and taking as friends people who are not qualified to be good friends. People who don't have faith at all. People who have developed bad habits, who have bad practices. People who have gone into the wrong way in terms of their conduct and their behavior, in terms of their practice, in terms of their ethics, in terms of their beliefs, in terms of their lifestyle. So when the kid starts associating with such people, they will start to adopt these behaviors and these practices. They will start to do things that are haram, things that are considered to be major sins. And they would listen to their friends and their peers and not take advice from the parents. And the parents would start to feel some kind of disconnect. My child doesn't take my advice. When I try to advise them, they turn a deaf ear to that. They avoid having an honest and open conversation with me. They'd rather hear and listen and take advice from their friends, from someone outside the house. There is definitely a reason for that. It's not happening randomly and haphazardly. The child all of a sudden, switches their mind off when they have a conversation with their parent. This is a very common problem. And the consequences are more serious because the kid starts to trust people who are unqualified to give advice, or people who give them the worst type of advice that will set them up in their life and push them away from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And yes, the society we live in is quite challenging these days. There's a lot of philosophies. There is a lot of notions and lifestyles. There are a lot of practices and lifestyles that go contrary to ethical principles, that go contrary to belief in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that go contrary to the teachings of Islam, that they go contrary to even any kind of decent living. So when the child goes to middle school, high school, university, the workplace, they are exposed to people from different lifestyles, different life orientations. And some of these people are quite attractive. They're very well spoken. They carry themselves quite well. They know how to express themselves. Sometimes they're well off, they have resources, and that's attractive to many people. Sometimes these people are successful in their profession, in their business, in their work, in their relationships, and this is an attracting factor that draws people towards them. So when the parents have lost their child from a young age, by disconnecting emotionally to their child, by only viewing parenthood was about feeding them and clothing them and sheltering them and sending them to school and maybe educating them in an academic way. But what about the human connection? Did the child feel they really had a friend in their father? Did they find a friend in their father? Did they find a friend in their mother? Did they find a safe environment at home to speak their mind and ask questions and express their emotions and share their concerns and ask and seek for guidance without being put down, without being threatened, without being questioned, without being demonized? Did they experience a safe environment at home where they could find the best friend in their father or their mother and they could freely speak with them and take guidance from them? Or do the children only feel that their parents were policing them all the time? Were screening them and surveilling them all the time? And always having suspicion, evil suspicion about them. Never give them the benefit of the doubt. Searching for the slightest mistake and catching them and making sure we make clear to them how bad they are, how evil they are, how weak they are, how bad their intentions are. And we think, I'm a good parent. I caught them doing the wrong thing and I pointed it out to them. And what happens? It disconnects. Because they can't find a friend in you. They can't feel safe in your presence. When they are at home, they feel they are being screened and watched all the time. So they have a need to lock themselves up in the room so they can feel at least safe and not being watched. Because being stared at all the time is quite an exhausting experience. That's not going to fall easy on some ears, I understand this. But if we don't see the consequences that are going to happen 5, 10 years down the line because of this, when we have forgotten that this is the reason we don't make the connection, then we start running around searching for help. My child is losing their deen. My child is taking drugs. My child is having a boyfriend. My daughter is having a girlfriend. My child comes late. They only come home at 2 a.m. I don't know who they spend time with. They come with the smell of alcohol. They come with the smell of weed. When I speak to them, they never take my advice. And when they grow and have more freedom and independence, you can't do anything with them, right? They're way beyond your control. So how did all this policing, what kind of payoff did it give? It didn't give anything. We have to remember and keep in our minds that we live in a society that's open. In a Muslim country, predominantly Muslim country where there's Muslim culture, you can leave the education of your child, you can leave it to some extent for the society. Because everyone in this society, they take it as a responsibility to teach the child. The whole flow of the society, of the culture, keeps the children somehow safe from very bad things. So you can probably count on this. But when you live in an open society where people can do whatever they want, people can espouse the beliefs they want, people can say whatever they want, people can destroy their lives and the lives of others through any means, by substance abuse, by a lot of negative practices. Your child is susceptible to that. They're exposed to this. So it's easy for them to fall into that. They see it in school, they see it in university, they see it in the street, they see it in the neighborhood, they see it on TV, they see it online, they see it in the workplace. And we know that we humans, when we reach our teenage years, we have a lot of emotional changes. Our outlook on life starts to change. We want meaningful relationships. And if we can't find this at home from the father and the mother and the siblings, people are going to search for it outside. And the problem is when you have in school or outside in the street, when they have people who would listen to them, people who would give them some kind of validation, some kind of respect, some kind of regard. And these people are doing bad things, but they will rush to them because of their desperate need has not been met at home. I mean, you can argue against this, but facts remain facts. They are brutal. As bad as they seem, that's what our youth are going through. There's a disconnect. We want our children to live our own culture. We want them to live our own times. Times have changed. Times have changed. We have to see what's going on in our society. We have to see what our children are experiencing. What kind of pressures they are going through. They have to deal with a lot. They are being accused of being terrorists. They're being accused of being weird. They can't take boyfriend, girlfriend. They can't party. They can't mix like others with the opposite gender. There are so many things they cannot do. But in school, in university, at work, these people do these things on a daily basis. Our kids cannot do that. So they're looked down upon. This is a pressure. There's a lot of peer pressure from the school, from the teachers, from the system, from their classmates, from their peers, from others. Then now they are questioned as being Muslim. You are terrorists. Then they are tormented by teachers and professors about the conflict, this supposed, the so-called conflict between religion and science. Then there are philosophical issues offered to them where they challenge Islam on an ethical basis. And they frame ethical issues in a way that goes against Islam. And the kids are faced with all of this. And the kids remember, at home, all they had to do with religion was forced to pray, forced to dress up in a certain way, forced to be in a certain way. Never got the time to have a human connection. Some people don't even sit for dinner together as a family, or for lunch as a family, or for breakfast as a family. Some people don't even live at home. There's no life at home. There's no life. The family doesn't get together. So the reason I quoted this khutbah at the beginning, that we think saving our children from the hellfire is by feeding them and clothing them and then securing some kind of Islamic education for them. What about the connection? A boy needs a father figure in the house. He needs to experience the love, the concern, the connection, the care of his father. That his father is his mentor. So he spends time with his father. Quality time. You spend time with your child, with your daughter. The daughter needs her father to grow, to feel that she is loved, that she's precious, she's appreciated, she's important, she's valuable. She needs to feel this. When she doesn't feel it at home, she's going to search for it outside. And when a guy connects with her on social media, sending her some nice, sweet words, he can ensnare her and play around with her mind. And we say, I don't know what happened to my daughter. You haven't given her enough love. That's the reason, or one of the reasons at least. The daughter needs her father. She needs her mother. She needs to be connected. You need to spend quality time with them as a family. It's not a mechanical relationship. We're not robots. Just provide physical needs. It doesn't work. The emotional connection could be far more important than any other physical need. They need to have your presence at home. Yes, life is hard sometimes for some people. Life is challenging and demanding. But it's not worth losing your kids. Some people have their problems, the problems from work, the financial problems. They have them on their mind 24/7. At home, they're only making calculations. They're only thinking about the pressure at work. They're only thinking about the demands upon them. So the kids are playing around, speaking with them, and they can't give attention to their children. And they say, I'm spending time with my kids. You're not. You have to be present. You have to give them your heart. You have to give them your attention. You have to give them your whole self at that time. Spend time with them. Take them out. Take them for a trip every now and then. Spend family time, precious family time. Make this the best memories in their life. Let them feel safe to come and confide in you and express their concerns to you. So they don't have to search for that outside. And when this escalates, you will lose them at some stage. And we don't want to do this. So secure that emotional connection. Be your father. That's a way, a very important element of this verse. قُوا أَنفُسَكُمْ وَأَهْلِيكُمْ نَارًا وَقُودُهَا النَّاسُ وَالْحِجَارَةِ. Protect yourselves and your families from a fire that is so burning, that burns humans and burns rocks and stones. The Prophet ﷺ has narrated in the authentic hadith, he would be sitting with his wives. Fatima approaches them. She comes. The Prophet ﷺ stands up. He walks towards her. Then he says, Marhaban bibnati, welcome my daughter. He welcomes his daughter so warmly. Then he kisses her. He kisses her on her cheek, he kisses her on her hand. Then he takes her and he makes her sit in his place. He sits next to her. Then he says, this is my daughter. This is my daughter. That's how the Prophet ﷺ spent time with this is how he appreciated his daughter. Our daughter approaches us and we're so busy. She plays around and we're just busy doing our calculations and our work and our business, and we think we're spending time with the family. You're not. They want your heart, they want your attention, they want you to be there with them. Otherwise they're not going to feel that connection and they will search for it outside. The Prophet ﷺ every time, and this is another authentic hadith, every time he travels outside of Medina, comes back to Medina, what does he do? The first thing he does, he goes to al-masjid, prays 2 rak'ah. Next, he goes to the house of Fatima. He goes and greets her, gives her salam, spends time with her, then he goes back home. Every time he travels, comes back, that's what he does. The Prophet ﷺ would spend time with his wives. He would consult with them, he would take their opinion. When one of the companions was asked, or Aisha was asked, what did the Prophet ﷺ do during the day? What was his daily routine? She said, كَانَ فِي خِدْمَةِ أَهْلِهِ. He used to do things for his wives, for his family, for his house chores. And I'm not saying go and do the dishwashing and all that stuff, but the Prophet ﷺ would see whatever needs his wives wanted or they had, and he would meet these needs. He would help them out. And it's not about the needs, it's about being there for them. Being there for them. If your child doesn't feel safe to confide in you and speak with you and share with you their concerns and their ideas, as crazy as they may be, then there is a danger that they could seek that attention outside. أقول قولي هذا وأستغفر الله لي ولكم من كل ذنب فاستغفروه. الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. Again, as I said, mainly the ones who are addressed in this khutbah are the parents. But this also applies to siblings, towards their other siblings. And it applies to, even generally in society, members of the same kind of community. They should watch each other's backs. They should be concerned for one another. Extend attention and care to one another. And be respectful. At least be respectful. If you're not going to be kind, at least let's be respectful to one another. And so when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says protect your family, yourselves and families from the hellfire, there are so many things that you need to do. In addition to meeting the basic needs, these emotional needs are much more profound. They're much more profound because when your children find solace and they find a listening ear outside the house, what this person is outside the house, who they are, is going to have a lot of influence on your child. And if you look around, most of the time it's going to be a negative influence. So we need to foster more safe environments at home where the child can really find their own paradise in this world at home. They can find meaningful relationships. And having a friendship with your child doesn't mean losing the respect. It doesn't at all mean losing the respect. And it was actually narrated from Umar al-Khattab radiyallahu anhu that he said, يَنْبَغِي لِلرَّجُلِ أَنْ يَكُونَ فِي بَيْتِهِ كَالطِّفْلِ. A man in his house should be like a child. That he's playful, he's innocent, he's not so strict, he's not a policeman. He's not some kind of detective that is, chasing after his kids, trying to read clues here and there, trying to catch them doing the bad things. Just be a child, be playful with your spouse, with your children. And I said you can always argue against this, but at the end of the day, this has very serious consequences. And if we do not at least consider it, we'll be held responsible, because it's our responsibility to save our families. So this was the main advice, and this was the main point in this khutbah, and I hope that you take as much as you can from it. It's quite simple and easy, but it requires that you spend quality time with your family members. Be there for them. Leave the world behind when you enter your home and spend time with them. Have a meal with them. Have a walk in the park with them. Take them for shopping and give them some kind of duties and tasks. Let them grow as children. Deal with them as you deal with your friends in a sense. Make them feel happy and comfortable and safe with you. That they want to come to you and share their aspirations and their dreams and their concerns and their plans. That they find you as a good friend who really cares for them. Instead of seeing you just as an enemy or just as someone who wants to put them down. Because oftentimes, yes, we want to discipline our kids, but we bring the anger that we harbor in our chests and we just heap it on our children, thinking, oh, that's just discipline, they have to toughen up, they have to grow. But the problem is you pay a very hefty price for that at the end of the day. So again, inshallah, soon the Hajj season is round the corner. So I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to facilitate it, to make it easy for our brothers and sisters who are going for Hajj. And also, as for those who are not going for Hajj, there's a great opportunity in the first 10 days of the Hijjah. And inshallah, probably in the next khutbah, inshallah, we will talk about the 10 days of the Hijjah. We'll talk about the things that we can do. We'll talk about the Udhiyah as well and the Eid. These are things that are important actually to start preparing for them now, because it might get difficult later on, especially with the Qurbani or the Udhiyah.